If you have the opportunity to eliminate one of the most feared players in tournament poker, I guess you should probably go for it. I guess you should. And that's what Lucky Chewy's thinking, facing off against the Slim Reaper, Stephen Chidwick from London, England. You know what I'm saying?
He's bald.
He is. He is. That has nothing to do with his nickname. Well, it has a little bit to do with it.
Totally has to do with his
nickname. It has nothing to do with where he's from.
Maybe.
We don't actually know the atmosphere.
The genetics in England.
We can't know. We're not scientists, but we are analysts of poker hands. So let's go through this one.
Okay, there's a lot to talk about.
Has 3 left in the Super High Roller Bowl and eliminates Stephen Chidwick. I mean, holy cow. Lucky Chewy opens from the button. Chidwick defends, whatever. We have a dominated queen situation. Of note, Ike Haxton is sitting over there with over 100 bigs, so Chidwick is in a bad chip position here with 900K.
Yep.
Where Chewy's got 2.3 million, Chidwick's got 900K, and Haxton has a lot too.
This does feel like a don't try this at home kids thing when Chidwick defends with queen 6 off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but he's
Stephen Chidwick.
In the conversation for best tournament player in the world.
No question.
He's allowed to do it.
Absolutely.
We get the queen high flop. Uh-oh, Stevie.
Uh-oh. This is going to be bad.
And then it goes check, check.
What the heck?
Chidwick checking makes lots of sense.
Of course.
I mean, Lucky Chewy checking makes plenty of sense too. He's just protecting his check back range. You're going to check some pretty decent hands sometimes. This is one of them that he chooses, and he's going to get to bluff catch and all that stuff.
It's not like a very strong range advantage board for him or anything like that. Still, this is a hand that I think I would usually be betting. I think even he might usually be betting, but he's not always betting it is the point, right?
Then the turn comes, and is it irony that the Slim Reaper is drawing dead?
Oh.
Is that classic Alanis Morissette irony?
I think it might be.
Yeah. It's like rain on your wedding day up in this.
All you need is a knife, you know?
But there's forks everywhere.
10,000 spoons, actually.
No, I think it's different. That was the revised version. Originally, there's forks everywhere. It is notably a third diamond. No straights come in. It is a third diamond, but Chewy does make top 2 pair. He has the queen of diamonds as a backup in case Chidwick has a lower flush.
Pretty good.
He also can make a full house, of course, if that were the case.
Of course.
Chidwick now is going to go ahead and lead out because you got to protect your top pair. This is a wet card.
Sure.
Chewy doesn't have to have a strong hand here. He could have a lot of showdownable hands that will give value to Chidwick. It is the case, though, that Chidwick is drawing dead. And should Chewy pounce on this 100K and try to make it more, or wait for later, or never raise? What should be going through Chewy's head on this third diamond that's an 8?
I mean, the third diamond isn't great, right? The 8 is beautiful. We have the queen of diamonds in our hand. Those things are all good. If we raise, some hands that are worse than ours will call, but it feels like we don't need to inflate this pot right now. We're in position. We get to see what he does on the river. If we're out of position, we might decide to do some things differently. I think this is mostly, if not always, a call because it's the third diamond.
I agree. Chidwick has a ton of diamonds in his range. We saw that he called preflop with queen 6 off. He's got any suited combo of diamonds that's not too good to just call with, right?
Right. Everything else, it's either 3-bet or call, but no 2 diamond cards have been folded preflop with Chidwick.
Right.
We know that.
So that's a bit of a fear for Chewy. Makes sense. I like the call.
Yep.
Let's get to the really good stuff.
Oh, it's so good. It's the elixir. The nectar.
All right. We're going to need to calm down a little bit. We'll edit in post to make it sound more calm. Ricardo, make sure to make it a little calmer.
No, it's fine, Ricardo.
Okay, no, you can leave it. Leave it, Ricardo. 5 of spades.
Okay.
A couple straights come in, 6-4 and 6-9. But Chidwick blocks those with queen 6. Is that good enough reason to go for value with queen 6, that you block those hands, or even just having top pair? Is that good enough reason to go for value?
I don't think it's about blocking the hands so much. I think it's mostly about we have top pair. There's a lot of hands that Chewy checks back on the flop and calls with on the turn that are not as good as top pair, that really are probably going to call a lot of rivers when the 4th diamond doesn't come. I don't know for sure if he's going to call, but most of those hands are going to check back. If Chewy turned an 8, he might not bet it if we check. He might. If he's got a 7 and decided to check the flop, he's probably checking that. Probably, right? Let's get value, man.
Yeah, I like the bet, except for knowing Chewy's hand. I hate the bet.
Well, it's terrible.
It's an awful bet.
But otherwise, it's a great bet.
Now we get to the really interesting stuff.
Okay.
Chewy decides to move Chidwick in. He's got top 2.
If there was a way to turn this poker play into like a cupcake, I would eat the cupcake. I love this. This is incredible.
I thought you didn't like cupcakes. You have a ratio problem with cupcakes.
I do have a ratio problem with cupcakes, actually, but that's why this would fix the cupcake.
That's neither here nor there. Now, if you want to hear my complex theory on why it might be better to not have the queen of diamonds for Lucky Chewy, check out our podcast. That's where
Right.
we get deep into it. But we have another complex theory as to why Chewy might move in here. And it's the situation that we're in stack-wise in the tournament that we mentioned earlier. Chidwick is left with 500K after this bet. And if he folds, both Lucky Chewy and Ike Haxton are going to have over 100 bigs, and Chidwick is going to have 20. It's a pretty low percentage chance to win the tournament from that position, right? So the downside of that is pretty severe when you compare it to the upside of calling and being right. So if Chewy is thinking about this as he is seeing Chidwick stack and moving in, he might be thinking, I can move in with a wider range because Chidwick is going to expand his calling range due to those two potential outcomes for Chidwick.
Yep. That is one theory we've been kicking around and we like. I do have to say there's a second theory, which Grant, not a big fan of, but might be true, which is Chidwick bet 225K into 350, and it's not a polarizing bet. So usually he doesn't have a polarizing hand. He's not very, very strong or very, very weak. He's more middling, right? Like could be reasonably strong, but that's usually where he's going to top out, usually. So Chewy feels more comfortable moving in than if Chidwick, say, bet pot or pot and a half or something like that, where my belief anyway is that Chewy is much more likely to just call. So Chewy may feel like, green light. Chidwick probably doesn't have a super strong hand here.
That said, it's still very thin.
It is very thin anyway.
And also depends what you mean by middling. We don't have to get into that, but like
Right.
is 6-4 middling? I don't know. It's a straight, but is it middling?
I don't think it's middling.
Okay. Anyway, Chewy does the move in. I like the idea that it's because he thinks Chidwick will call wider, right?
Yep,
I
me
hope,
too.
I hope that's why he's doing it, because that would be cool.
It would be cool to be right about that.
And as we see, Chidwick does freaking call.
He calls it all.
And the best thing I can come up with is that Chidwick is thinking the same way, that Chewy was right, that he has to call wider because of the tournament situation he's going to be in if he folds and is left with 500K, and how good it would be to have over like near 2 million.
I mean, I think that's part of it for sure. I think there's other things going on too. Of course, Chidwick has a pretty good blocker in his hand, having the 6. It blocks the straight. Yeah. Either way, 6-4, 6-9. That's really nice to have.
It blocks 6 combos, though, because Chewy's not opening those unsuited.
He sure isn't. So it's not that good, but it is still something. Yeah. Blocking 6-9 feels pretty nice, I guess. The other thing is, too, and
actually, it doesn't block 6 combos. It blocks 2 combos because it's 1-6. It's a 6 of spades. So it only blocks 6-9 of spades and 6-4 of spades.
Okay. Oh, that's what it blocks.
Yeah.
Like there's still 6 combos out there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'm glad we figured that one out.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing, though, that I think might be happening at least a little bit is it's possible Chidwick levels himself into this call a little bit, right? Where he knows he bet 225 into 350. He knows he's saying, I don't have a super strong hand. I have a good hand, but not a great hand.
I just can't believe that these guys on this level are thinking that way.
I know, but I feel like I see this kind of play. And when we even talked on the podcast, you acknowledged, or somewhat agreed at least, that like had Chidwick bet 400, you think it's less likely anyway that Chewy's moving in with this hand, right?
But I think that's me playing against the players that I play against would never move in. But maybe in these guys' world, that's a move in. I don't know.
It's hard to say because it was surprising Chewy moved in anyway, right? Right. But I'm saying like, so potentially Chidwick also is saying as part of the soup that he's trying to like concoct here to decide should he call or should he fold, another factor might very well be, well, I don't look very strong when I bet 225 as opposed to betting like 350.
Okay, but let's stop talking about field player BS, shall we, for a second?
Okay.
Because where is he in his distribution?
Yes.
Even though he wants to call with maybe an expanded range due to the tournament scenario, he's still very low in his distribution.
Very low.
He called with queen 6 off. That means he has 6-4 off and 6-9 off in his range. That's 32 combos that he has of straights. He then has another significant amount of flushes, like 20 flush combos, something like that.
He sure does. He's certainly got queen 8 in his range.
Yeah, and then Chidwick's got any queen 6 or queen 9 with a diamond in it, which is clearly better than those without diamonds.
Yep.
He has 2 pair combos, which you could argue are worse to call with in this hand because of the blocker situation. But I don't know.
Queen 7, queen 8 feel like pretty good calls to me in this spot.
But then how many more hands below this does he even bet on the river that aren't just pure bluffs?
Yeah, I think this is the most interesting point actually of all of it is when you really tear it apart, we've got so many better hands to call with. It's surprising me he calls unless he's doing, coming back to what you said, if I fold, I got 20 blinds. If I call and I'm right, I have 2 million and I'm ready to rock and roll.
You'd still think he'd cut off the very bottom right? Because he has so many better hands to call with.
Well, I mean, this isn't the very bottom.
Right,
I
but
think he's betting 8s. I think he's betting other queens.
You think he's betting some good 8s, not all the 8s?
Yeah. He's betting some good 8s. I think he's betting queens, and most of the queens are worse than this queen, even if they have a better kicker.
Yeah,
they're
king
still
queen
worse.
is a worse hand than this to call with.
I don't know if he has king queen that often, but like queen whatever, queen 9, for example.
Queen jack, that's a bad example. Queen jack.
But even queen 9 is
slightly
not
worse.
Is still worse.
Yeah, slightly worse.
You'd rather have queen 6.
Yeah.
So there are some things to cut off, but not much. And I agree with you. It feels like this is too inclusive, and we may have to pitch this one, unless you're thinking, I'd rather have 2 million or nothing than, and ride, roll the dice here and hope it's right.
Yeah, but he's just out. He's just out because he makes the call.
I mean, I wonder how he felt about that.
He didn't have a feeling.
I'll get you, Harry!
He's a Slim Reaper. He doesn't feel.